So in this final video for Chapter 7, we're going to talk a little bit more about the terms synthesis, decomposition, single and double displacement with regards to chemical reactions. Those four terms speak to what the atoms do during the chemical reaction as opposed to the actual chemistry that occurs. And as we said previously, you can use both sets of terms, either ones that talk about the chemistry or terms that talk about what the atoms do during a chemical reaction when describing a particular reaction. So, for example, when we talk about a synthesis reaction, that's when two simpler substances combine to make a more complex substance. So, if you're taking solid sodium and chlorine gas, again, I would not recommend you do this because both of these are pretty toxic by themselves. But when they react in a synthesis fashion because when you add them together, you get a more complex substance, sodium chloride. So that is the definition of a synthesis reaction. We could also say that this synthesis reaction is also a redox reaction because both of these reactants have a charge of 0, as described on how we determine charge in the redox reaction video. When they're in an ionic compound, sodium has a +1 charge, chlorine has a -1 charge. So in this synthesis reaction, we can say the sodium lost electrons or was oxidized, and the chlorine was reduced or gained electrons. So synthesis reaction, two simpler substances combine to make a more complex substance. If you were to break that substance down, that would be a decomposition reaction. Decomposition reactions are really important in electrolysis, which is what's happening here with this battery. We're putting in energy to actually take water molecules and split them apart. So that's the definition of a decomposition. This decomposition reaction happens to be a redox reaction as well. In liquid water, hydrogen in that water is a +1 charge. The oxygen's a -2 charge. And when that water molecule breaks down to give the elements of the diatomic molecules of hydrogen and oxygen, both have a 0 charge. So this particular decomposition reaction is also a redox reaction. And then finally, we had single and double displacements. Single displacements, that's where one species switch partners with the other. Many times single displacement reactions can also be redox reactions. And in double displacement reactions, that's where everyone switches partners, where you have the cation of one species pairing with the anion of the other species. We saw a double displacement reaction occur with potassium iodide and lead-2 nitrate. And that was also a precipitation reaction because it formed a solid. So those terms, single displacement, double displacement, synthesis, decomposition, those are terms that can be used to describe what the atoms are doing in a chemical reaction, and you should feel comfortable using those terms